10 more real estate questions for the real estate exam. These are on contracts in California. All right, we're back in the lab. As you can see, we're studying hard. The way it works is I take these 10 questions just like a quiz. I am studying for the real estate exam just like you guys. Today we have the second 10 questions from last week's video of the first 10 questions. If you want to check that one out, go check that one out. Please subscribe to the channel if you want more test questions, more real estate vocab, more real estate concepts. And if you are studying for the real estate exam and you want to pass in 2025, this is the channel for you. Now let's get into the questions. All right, as you can see, we are on real estate sales, national plus California. I know I said California earlier, but this also works for the national exam. Comment below if you want national plus your state. So question 1, a listing agent shows a buyer a home. The buyer then fills out an offer to buy the home, which the listing agent takes and explains to the sellers. The sellers like the offer and sign their acceptance to it. They then hand the accepted offer to their agent with instructions to deliver the accepted contract back to the buyer. Has a contract been created? Yes, because the offer was accepted. Yes, because the listing agent now has possession of the accepted offer. No, because the sellers have not relinquished control of the acceptance. Yes, because the offer has been delivered to the buyer. I want to say yes, because the offer was accepted. Incorrect. No, because the sellers have not relinquished control of the acceptance. All right, let's read about it. Let's zoom in a little bit. One more. Question rationale. Since the listing agent is under the control of the seller, there has not been delivery or communication of the acceptance. To be delivered, the contract must be out of the possession and control of the party accepting it. Even though the acceptance had left the seller's possession, it had not left their control. They could call the listing agent and tell him to bring back the accepted contract. So if it's not delivered to the buyer, basically, and it's not out of their control, then you can still call your listing agent and be like, no, we changed our mind. Okay, I get it. Question 2, contract law requires that the amount of earnest money to submit with a sales contract be A, no earnest money is required to form a contract. B, 6% of the offer. C, 10% of the asking price. D, at least $1,000. I don't think earnest money is required to form a contract, but I think it's like widely accepted, probably like 90% of contracts. But I could be wrong. Correct. Earnest money is not an essential element of a contract and is not required to form a binding contract. If any earnest money is offered by the buyer or is required by the seller as part of the transaction, the amount of earnest money is entirely negotiable between the parties. Question 3. A buyer and seller have agreed to all terms of a contract. Both have signed the document. One party would now like to make a change. How would this legally be accomplished? A can be changed by the written agreement of the buyer and the buyer's attorney. B can be changed in writing by mutual agreement of both parties. C cannot be changed in any way. D can be changed by a unilateral codicil from either party. I want to say it cannot be changed in any way. As soon as you make a change, you reject the offer and the contract, and you have to make a whole new contract and offer. But I could be wrong. Incorrect. Okay. It can be changed in writing by mutual agreement of both parties. A contract can be modified but required the written agreement of both parties. That makes sense. If you guys both agree to it, you don't need to go through the whole dog and pony dance. Question 4. A seller signs an exclusive agency agreement with the broker. The day after the listing is signed, the seller's brother-in-law decides to make an offer on the property. Without knowing that the property has been listed, which of the following statements is true? A, the buyer will have to pay a commission. B, the seller will have to pay the commission to the broker. C, since a buyer was found during the listing period, the broker will be entitled to a commission. D, the broker is not entitled to a commission. I think since he listed it already and it was found during the listing period, the broker will be entitled to a commission. That's just, I could be wrong. Like I've been wrong on the last two. Let's check it. Incorrect. The broker is not entitled to a commission. Okay. Let's read why. Under an exclusive agency agreement, the broker is entitled to a commission only if the broker or another agency finds a buyer for the seller. In this situation, the seller found the buyer, so they do not owe a commission. If this were an exclusive right to sell listing, then the seller would have to pay the broker commission no matter who found the buyer. So it's kind of like a for sale by owner. I'm not doing too hot on the contracts today. Last week, we got 9 out of 10 of the questions correct. Today, I think we've got 1 correct so far. We're learning. Question 5, a real estate agent presents a full price cash offer with no contingencies during the initial listing period. The seller refuses to sign the contract because they don't like the buyers. Which situation is correct? A, the buyer could sue for specific performance. B, the listing agency is due a commission. C, no commission can be due unless there is a closing. D, the listing contract would be automatically terminated. Which situation is correct? The buyer could sue for specific performance. That seems like kind of correct. C, no commission can be due unless there's a closing. That also seems correct. I don't think it would automatically be terminated. The listing agency is due a commission. I don't know if that's true either. It's A or C. I want to go with C. Incorrect. Okay. I'm not doing too hot, guys. The listing agent is due a commission. Although sellers are not obligated to accept any offer on their home, the contract with the broker most likely will obligate them to pay a commission, as the broker has done what they were hired to do. So even if they don't accept it, they found the buyer, so they still will get a commission. All right, guys, that was 5 quick questions for the real estate exam. If you want your own test bank of questions, I highly recommend using a website called Colibri. This is the current website that I'm using right now. They all have the CompuCram program, and we have teamed up with them, and they're offering 40% off everything on the website. Use the code BURKE40. Click the link in the description if you want your own test bank of questions, want your own exam prep. They also offer your real estate prerequisite courses for any state. Click the link below, help support the channel, and get your license with me in 2025. Back to the questions. Question 6, a home buyer wishes to make an offer on a home but has little money. On the contract, he puts down $0 as earnest money, which is correct. A, the minimum earnest money is 1% of the offer. B, the contract is not valid with earnest money. C, even if the seller signs, the buyer is not bound. D, the contract, when signed by the seller, is fully enforceable. So we know from before that earnest money is not required. So I want to say here, unless in the contract, does it say in the contract that he has to put earnest money in? That would be negotiable too. So right now, my gut's telling me the contract, when signed by the seller, is fully enforceable. Correct. There is no requirement for earnest money, although in practice, it is a good idea. An educated seller or listing agent will probably request it, but does not affect the validity of the contract. Question 7. We're blowing through these. When a property is listed, it is A, a contract, B, an offer to sell, C, a solicitation of offers to buy, D, an option. When a property is listed, it is, I want to say it's a contract. An offer to sell, a solicitation of offers to buy. Incorrect. A solicitation of offers to buy. A real estate listing is not considered a property owner's offer to sell. A buyer doesn't create a contract by accepting the seller's listing. Rather, a buyer makes a written offer to purchase, and the seller may accept or reject the offer, or the seller may agree to enter into an option contract, allowing the potential buyer time to decide whether or not to buy. So it's not a contract, and it's a solicitation of offers to buy. So you're just getting all the offers to buy it, and then we can get into a contract when you accept it. Question 8, a legal remedy which would compel a vendor to execute a deed pursuant to a valid land installment contract is known as. A legal remedy which would compel a vendor to execute a deed pursuant to a valid land installment contract is known as A, execution of sales, B, specific performance, C, the equity of redemption, D, of writ of execution. So they say execution here. Specific performance, I think, is just like the regular sale. Let's just go with execution. Incorrect. Specific performance. Specific performance is a remedy available to the buyer, i.e. the vendee, in a land contract that would force the vendor, i.e. the seller, to simply execute the deed and specifically perform the promises that were given in the land installment contract. So these back half of these 10 questions is tough. Question 9. A sales agent reads in the local paper that a seller is offering property for sale by owner with a 3% fee to any broker who brings in a buyer. The agent asks to show the property to a buyer. What type of listing has the seller offered? A, open listing. B, exclusive right to sell. C, exclusive agency agreement. D, net listing. I believe it's open listing. It's open to any broker that brings in a buyer and they get the 3%. Correct. An open listing is one where the seller is not represented by any agent or broker, but offers all brokers the chance to find a buyer without signing any listing agreement. It's not legal in all states. The net listing has been declared illegal in many states. The exclusive right to sell is the listing that the broker prefers, as it gives the broker the exclusive right to sell the property. The exclusive agency agreement will gain a broker's commission only if that broker's agency or any other agency, and not the seller, finds a buyer. Okay. All right, last question of the day. A contract that has 4 elements required by California law is called A, voidable, B, bilateral, C, void, D, valid. I believe that would be valid. The 4 elements, well, I'm sure it'll tell us, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. Correct. We're ending on a correct. A contract that has capable parties, mutual consent, a lawful objective, and sufficient consideration is valid. Those are the 4. We got to write those down. All right, let's check to see how we did on the back half. I know we did good on the first half. So these are all on the back half, I think. When a property is listed, it is a solicitation of offers to buy. A buyer have all agreed to the terms. How would this be legal? Can be changed in writing by mutual agreement of the parties. A legal remedy would compel specific performance. The sellers have not relinquished their control, so they haven't given it to the buyer yet. We know that one. The listing agency is due a commission, even if the seller doesn't want the buyers to buy it because they found the buyer. The broker is not entitled to commission after they found the brother-in-law. And that was from last week. So not too hot. We got 4 out of 10 today, I think, correct. That's really bad. We're going to write these down on a piece of paper and try to lock these in the brain. Let's get back into the lab. Thanks again for watching. Not my best showing today, but we are learning and we are getting closer and closer to the end of 2025 where I need to take the test and I need to pass with you guys. If you want more test question videos, more real estate concepts, more real estate vocabulary to help you pass, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.